Another episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the 2021 NFL Quarterback Draft Class Top 5 Ranking Show, where each and every pre-NFL draft season, I guess you could say, as we lead up to this NFL draft, I always like to give my top 5 rated players at every position. We're starting off with the biggest position to discuss. That is the 2021 quarterback draft class. So the 2021 quarterback draft class rankings, ranking them 5 to 1 in this show. So I'm very excited to hop on the show today and give you this quarterback class ranking that I think a lot of people will be talking about my ranking of these 5 quarterbacks. And I'm thankful that we're as a fan of football in general, my team is not lumped into this quarterback draft class. The Buffalo Bills, they selected Josh Allen in 2018. It's worked out pretty well. Josh Allen's name will be dropped in this show, and you guys will find out why as I move along my quarterback rankings. But I want to start off with answering the question, what makes this class different from previous years? I think that this quarterback draft class is a little bit different in the terms of you have prospects that have true notoriety, guys like Trevor Lawrence, and then you have some guys that have kind of burst onto the scene within the last year or so. A guy by the name of Zach Wilson, Mac Jones at Bama, Trey Lance playing at a small school, North Dakota State. He's kind of burst onto the scene as well the last year or so. So, outside of Trevor Lawrence, a lot of these names, only the hardcore, diehard draft geeks like myself and the hardcore college football fans out there really know these players and what they were able to contribute to their teams, to their programs. But ranking these guys, it's always difficult because I like to say, what is it that makes my ranking my ranking? What do I look for in a quarterback? What are the 3 things that I really like to see in a quarterback? And I have to say that when I go through these rankings, as far as what separates some of these guys from one another, there are 3 things that I see, in watching, the tape. And it's size, toughness, and leadership. I want a quarterback that has that prototypical size. Nowadays, we have seen quarterbacks, obviously like Josh Allen, who are 6'4", 6'5", and can move inside the pocket. It's a rarity to have, it's a rarity to have guys that are that big that can move that well. It truly is. That's what makes Josh Allen such an anomaly in terms of his performance year 2 to year 3. But there are a couple guys in this particular quarterback class that I feel do provide similarities to what makes a quarterback successful in quote-unquote today's National Football League. Guys that can move in the pocket, guys that can extend plays, guys that have that size, guys that can weather the storm and take a beating. And let's face it, a lot of these quarterbacks, when they're drafted the top 5 selections, they're going to teams that do not have the best supporting casts. They're going to teams that don't have the best offensive lines. They're going to teams where they are going to get hit early and often. And I think that a lot of these guys, in terms of what I'd be looking for if I were the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets, the San Francisco 49ers, who are most likely selecting quarterbacks in those first 3 draft choices in this year's NFL draft, I would be looking for a quarterback that has size, that has toughness, that has leadership. And I think some of these guys epitomize those traits a little bit better than others. But let's get right to it. So the 5th quarterback that I have rated on my quarterback class is a quarterback that has been looked at as a cream of the crop type prospect. He has definitely been in the talk and conversation as far as one of the better 2 quarterbacks in this draft, and that is Brigham Young University's Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson, a junior heading into this draft, 6'2", 214 pounds, a guy that I feel truthfully, honestly, there are reasons to like Zach Wilson, and then there are some reasons to be a little bit worried about Zach Wilson due to the fact that really he had that outstanding jump in performance from 2019 to 2020. an enormous production jump in 2020, outstanding touchdown to interception ratio in 2020. I think in terms of how he reads the field, there's reason to be optimistic. His arm looked better in 2020 in terms of his velocity on his throws than that in 2019. And in terms of the quick game, the run-pass option type offense that we have seen somewhat revolutionized in today's National Football League, Zach Wilson can really switch things up in terms of quick twitch throws, quick patterns, quick passing patterns. And he really is a gunslinger. He's not afraid to make those tight window throws. He's not afraid to take chances. But when I look at, size and toughness and some of the traits that I look at in terms of what I want, in a quarterback, the whole size, toughness, discipline, all that stuff, leadership, Zach Wilson does epitomize toughness and leadership. Size, they have him listed at 6'2". I think that's a little bit generous. I don't know if he's 6'2", and size doesn't necessarily matter as much in terms of the quarterback position in today's NFL. We got Baker Mayfield, we got Kyler Murray, we have Russell Wilson. But given where Zach Wilson is rated in these mock drafts and where he's expected to go to the New York Jets at second overall, now that the New York Jets have moved on from Sam Darnold, I'm just a little bit leery of a team like the Jets at second overall taking a quarterback like Zach Wilson. And here are the main reasons why. I believe that the level of competition does matter. The level of competition that each of these quarterbacks face does matter. The level of competition somewhat allowed Zach Wilson to just play this sandlot style football that, it works for guys like Pat Mahomes, and to an extent it works for guys like Josh Allen. But in terms of this bombs away style, I frankly just don't know if Zach Wilson is the type of quarterback that can translate his skill set to the NFL with immediate impact production. If you're taking a quarterback second overall, you want that guy to have that second overall immediate impact, start week one, right out of the gate, be that difference maker. And I just don't know if Zach Wilson can really be that immediate impact guy year one. If I'm interested in taking Zach Wilson, there are reasons to be interested in taking him, but I'm not looking to take him as a week one rookie starter. I'm looking to take him maybe midway through the first season. He's, his first rookie season he starts. Maybe we wait a little bit. Maybe he doesn't start at all his rookie season. Maybe he sits a year, learns behind a veteran. I think that there are some things that need to change a little bit in his passes. Keep in mind, the pro day type style that we see in today's NFL and how we evaluate quarterbacks, I think is overanalyzed, completely overanalyzed. We look at these quarterbacks on these pro days, they put together solid pro days, great throws, crisp throws, but they're playing in shorts. They're throwing to receivers in shorts. There isn't a defender running in their face. So to anyone that says, Zach Wilson, he had such a productive pro day, he looked so good in that pro day, why would you rate him fifth in this top 5 ranking? I would say to you, let's look at the actual game tape. Let's look at the actual level of competition that Zach Wilson faced at Brigham Young University. And let's look at some of the weaknesses of Zach Wilson. I think in terms of how he scans the pocket in comparison to some of these other quarterbacks, he holds the ball really low towards his waist. I think that the hero ball that we've seen from quarterbacks like Allen and Darnold and Lamar, they've dialed it back. Zach Wilson needs to dial it back even more than those guys did. I think there are times where he makes the hard throw, and credit to him, he makes that hard throw, but he passes on the easy throw. He doesn't take the easy throw. He takes the hard throw. That has to be cut out of his game in order to be, put into that NCAA translation into an NFL skill set. And I think in terms of overrated or underrated, I would say Zach Wilson is probably one of the more overrated quarterback prospects in terms of how he's been rated in comparison to what he actually brought collegiately. I talked about 2019 to 2020. He did some really good things from, looking back at 2019 and changing into 2020, if he continues to evolve, there's no doubt about it, he'll be one of the better, quarterback prospects in this draft class. But I think taking him second overall is a little bit of a stretch for whoever decides to take him at that high, which would in this case be the New York Jets, unless they trade out of that pick, which I don't see it happening. So that's my take on Zach Wilson of BYU. Number 4, I have Mac Jones out of Bama, and this is a quarterback that he grew on me for sure. I think this is another quarterback that could be a starter within his first 2 seasons, in the National Football League. 6'3", 217 pounds. He provides that prototypical size, and obviously committing to a school like Bama, 4-star prospect. Initially agreed to go to Kentucky, but then transferred to Bama, and joined Tua Tagovailoa in the recruiting class. There is a little bit of a character flaw with Mac Jones, and the fact that he was arrested and charged with a DUI in November of 2017 after being involved in a car accident. I don't know how heavily these National Football League franchises are going to look into that in terms of how it will impact Mac Jones and where he goes. But I think that there is reason to look at the player in particular. Look at him as a Daniel Jones type. Very prototypical. Does he have mobility? Yes. Given his size, he has more mobility than you would think. At 6'3", he can move. But what I liked is this past year with Jones and Bama, playing all 13 games, FBS record, single season completion percentage was 77.4% completion percentage. Led the country with 4,500 plus passing yards, second with 41 passing touchdowns. How much is Mac Jones a product, though, of his environment, playing with, let's face it, a collegiate team that could beat some of these NFL teams with some of the talent that is on this Alabama Crimson Tide roster each and every year, recruited by Nick Saban? And obviously the performance that Jones had in the national title game, 36 of 45, 80% completion percentage, 464 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was thrown to some players that, no doubt about it, will be selected in the first round. But really what jumps out to me about Mac Jones is his above average, elite level accuracy coming into the National Football League. Eye-catching production, obviously, as I stated. And in comparison to Zach Wilson, Mac Jones doesn't take the chances, doesn't take unnecessary risk. I feel like he's a true pocket quarterback. He takes really good reads in terms of how he reads the opposing defense. And I feel like there are slide plays within his career where he's slid in and out of the pocket to throw the football effectively. That's what you want to see translating from the NCAA to the NFL. If he can bring that to the National Football League and he doesn't try to play the hero ball his rookie year, doesn't try to do too much his rookie year, I think that could be something to his success. Love the touch that he throws with some of his throws over the top of a linebacker or over the top of a safety. And the accuracy that you see prevents his receiver from breaking their stride. He's putting the ball right where it needs to be, whether it's on the numbers or over the shoulder. And a comparison that I'm going to make when I look at Mac Jones, not just Daniel Jones, this is crazy. And this is a comparison that I've heard a lot, but, I thought it was a little bit premature until I really looked at the tape and saw that Mac Jones, there is a lot of Tom Brady in Mac Jones in terms of that over-the-top touch, that over-the-top accuracy, above-average accuracy. I think that's the main thing that I see with Mac Jones. And if there's a team that really needs a quarterback out there, Mac Jones out of Bama, I think, offers the easiest transition from the National Football League to the pros. Now, does he offer the mobility and some of the things that these other quarterbacks offer, ranking 3, 2, and 1? No, he doesn't. But I think with his size, the mobility is still there. The ability to show mobility in his game is still seen. So I like what I've seen from Mac Jones, and this is a guy that definitely has grown. Now, some of the weaknesses that I see that are painfully obvious to me. The thin lower body is a problem with Mac Jones. The thin legs that Mac Jones has, I think, is a problem. He has to bulk up a little bit. 6'3", 215. That's a svelte, slight lower body that's on the body of Mac Jones. And I think that he needs to get a little bit bigger, a little bit beefier in the legs in order to translate from the NCAA to the National Football League, especially if he goes to a team that doesn't necessarily have the best offensive line. You're going to have a quarterback back there that is going to be able to take the hits. And we'll see, what happens there. But as part of what makes him a benefactor of the team that he played for in college, I would say that really the fact that he locks in on his target rather than really seeing the progression, he reads the field well, but he reads it to one read. He's not looking at the second option. He's not looking at the third option. He reads the field well, but he's only reading it to really the first hot route, receiver on the play. And the poise, in terms of how he slips out of the pocket, I think there are times where he slips out of the pocket a little bit too soon. So that's what I see in terms of his game. And in terms of grit, true grit, Jones is lacking a little bit in that area. And I think that, potentially even Zach Wilson has a little bit more grit within his skill set than that of Mac Jones. Number 3, this is a very fun prospect. This is Justin Fields out of The Ohio State. What a player Justin Fields is in terms of what he brings to the table. I like him a lot. I think that this is a quarterback that it's going to be very interesting to see where he goes, because I think there's plenty of teams that could potentially reach for him that might already have a quarterback. The Detroit Lions, they made a trade for Jared Goff. Do they reach for a quarterback still, given that Goff, isn't really their guy? They traded for him. Do they go get their guy in a draft, and is Justin Fields that guy that they go out and get? We'll see. I see a lot of Dak Prescott, a lot of mobility, a lot of toughness. That is really what I see in Justin Fields that I think makes him a very intriguing player in this quarterback class. Never lost a Big Ten game as a starter. That's huge. Vast improvement with fumbles per snap from 2019 to 2020. Some of the notes that I got jotted down here, that the lateral footwork is a true gift from the heavens in terms of his ability to avoid the downhill blitzers, the safeties, the corners, even the outside linebackers. This is a unique player. Now, how he translates to the National Football League in terms of his weaknesses needs to improve the pocket mobility for cleaner launch points. He's mobile. He can extend a play. He can get outside the pocket. He can look to throw on the run, but sometimes he doesn't always choose the cleanest throw within extending a play. And the fact that he can still get the ball there and still find the unopen wide receiver, I think that shows his accuracy ability while throwing on the run. That you do see him run into pressure points at times, and it's a positive and negative connotation here in terms of the field vision against the blitz. We see Fields, extend plays, but the field vision in terms of surveying the field on the run, finding that open receiver, he's looking at the guy that there's not as much of a cleaner path towards those throws. And I think that, when we look at the production and the level of production that he brought to Ohio State, how will that translate? A guy that he played under at the University of Georgia was Jake Fromm, kind of a Buffalo Bills connection there for the Bills fans. He was Jake Fromm's backup. He decided to move on and go to the Buckeyes, the Ohio State. And he was granted a waiver that actually allowed him to immediately play, for the Ohio State. So I think that this is a guy, we see that the passing efficiency, we see touchdowns, we see the honors, player of the year as a sophomore, we see all the ability in the world. It's just finding the right fit. And that's the really tough part in terms of the draft each and every season. As much as I like these quarterbacks, and as much as I can say that Justin Fields has rare ability as a quarterback, going from the athleticism and the skill set that he has from the NCAA to the National Football League, if Justin Fields can find the right fit, if he's taken by the right offense, I think he could be maybe the best quarterback in this class. given that today's NFL kind of caters to quarterbacks that can move as well as he does. But we'll find out. I see him maybe sliding in this draft. There is reason to see him sliding in this draft based on some of the things that we see on the tape that we don't like, the forced throws, not taking the clean throws while throwing on the run. Those are typically the things that I see in his game that I think an NFL scout or an NFL GM might pass on him due to those things. But can those things be taken out of his game? Whatever team takes him is going to think that they can be taken out of his game. Number 2, quarterback Trey Lance. This is a quarterback that I think in most top 5 rankings, we do not see Trey Lance atop, the top 3. We usually see him ranked 4th, maybe 3rd, maybe 4th, 3rd or 4th, we'll say. Trey Lance is a guy that I've really liked these last few years. 6'4", 224 pounds. This is a quarterback that I think provides the most Josh Allen type skill set going from the NCAA to the National Football League. He's big, he's strong, he can move well in the pocket, he's accurate throwing on the run. In terms of a team that really needs that big body in the backfield as the quarterback, I think Trey Lance checks off a ton of boxes, and I think that he's a quarterback that, despite the fact that he played at North Dakota State, the alum of one Carson Wentz, I don't think that necessarily matters because North Dakota State has been able to prove that they can develop NFL talent at the quarterback position. Wentz obviously didn't have a great year last year, but I think that the jury's still out on Wentz. I'm not ready to write him off just yet. Trey Lance had 16 straight wins as a starter, culminating in an FCS title. Really loves to stretch the field, 9.7 yards per pass attempt, 5th in completion percentage. Despite the fact that he loves to stretch the field, you have a quarterback that completes those passes at a 66.9% clip. Did not throw an interception the entire campaign while ranking 10th in FCS rushing yards. The ability that Trey Lance has as a passer and as a runner, to me, puts him as a top 2 quarterback in this draft class, and ranking him under, of course, number 1, Trevor Lawrence. I won't spoil it for everybody. Well, I just did. But he went through a little bit of adversity, you could say, through the COVID-19 pandemic. Their season was postponed. One-year starter who dazzled in 2019. But what's crazy is that Trey Lance will be 20 years old at the start by the time of the 2021 NFL draft. So really, this is the quote-unquote project of the draft class. I think the potential for Trey Lance, from looking at that one guy that provides the most potential, Trey Lance is that guy. I think you take him 2nd overall, you can feel comfortable given the situation. If you already have a starter, you can feel real comfortable putting him in feast or famine, or even more comfortable having him learn behind an adequate veteran. And I think that the sky is the limit, I think, in terms of what he brought to the collegiate game. He can set his own protections. He's got great pocket setups, great footwork. And I see and have heard that his willingness to learn is he's a film junkie. He's got a high football IQ, NFL frame. He has a great play fake as well. So there's little nuances to his game that I think can cause him to flourish and grow, translating from the NCAA to the NFL, as I've said a bunch of times on this show. But what sets him kind of apart as a weakness is the fact that he's a highly inexperienced quarterback at the collegiate level. So is he a week 1 starter in the National Football League? Ideally, you would hope not. But some of these teams are so desperate to figure it out. Do the San Francisco 49ers make the trade that they made with the Miami Dolphins to move up and take Trey Lance? That's something that I think would benefit the 49ers, benefit John Lynch, would benefit Kyle Shanahan. I think Lance would be a great fit in Kyle Shanahan's offense, and you would be able to sit him for a year under Jimmy Garoppolo, who did learn a thing or two from Tom Brady. I don't quite know if Jimmy Garoppolo is the guy for the San Francisco 49ers. Is Trey Lance the guy for the Niners? I think he could potentially be that guy. And I know that a lot of people are going to look at this ranking and say, wow, you rated Trey Lance 2nd. Yes, I do. And I'm damn proud of it. I think that he's a very solid prospect. We're looking at who can join a team and become something elite at the National Football League level, and I think Trey Lance can. So number one, it's no secret. Number one, who would not rate Trevor Lawrence as the number one quarterback outside of somebody that's desperate for attention? I'm going to put Trevor Lawrence as my number one quarterback, and it's just this simple. He is simply the best quarterback in this draft class based on what he accomplished at the collegiate level. He checks off all those boxes, and he checks off every box that we saw, some of these other quarterbacks check off. But the weaknesses are few and far between in terms of what Trevor Lawrence brings to the table. If I could say any weakness, in terms of what he brings to the table, the emphasis on the heavy play action, quick game, that's the type of offense that he has to stay in order to be as successful out of the gate. That's the offense that he has to be in order to be successful right out of the gate, I think. If he's taken by Jacksonville, which more likely than not he will be, Urban Meyer has to somewhat bring a Clemson-style offense to Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence right out of the gate, kind of to take those baby steps with Trevor Lawrence. This is a guy that will most definitely be starting in week one in the National Football League. Gardner Minshew, whether he's his backup or not, I think we could see a trade at the NFL draft. We could see that. Maybe they bring him in as a backup again. But we do see the frenetic panic when pressure arises with Trevor Lawrence, because it happens so few and far between in his career. Do I think that there could be potentially more struggles for Trevor Lawrence than some of these other guys coming out of the gate? I think so, but long term and what he brings to the table, I think that Trevor Lawrence has that elite size, that athleticism, and the play traits that make him that instant, long-term guy. Clean as a prospect, no character issues at all. The accuracy, the touch, the mobility, the anticipation, and the winning. 86-4 as a starter dating back to high school. He's a winner. He's a proven winner. And if you're picking first overall and you're the Jacksonville Jaguars and you want a quarterback that can bring that winning, culture, atmosphere, leadership, all those things, I think Trevor Lawrence is that guy. And I think that's why I have him rated as my number one. So, Zach Wilson, number 5, Mac Jones, number 4, Justin Fields, number 3, Trey Lance, number 2, and Trevor Lawrence, number 1. That is how I rate the 2021 NFL draft quarterback class. And I think that this is going to be a very interesting draft. As I said, from the top, in terms of how this 2021 NFL draft order kind of shapes up, we're 22 days away. Got the Jacksonville Jaguars number 1. It's more likely than not that they're going to take Trevor Lawrence, Wilson, and number 3, I really feel the 49ers. I implore the 49ers to take either Trey Lance or Mac Jones. Justin Fields, now where could he go in this quote-unquote mock, scenario if things do fall the way that I think they will? Atlanta is interesting. They're at 4th. I think they could make a big trade. Who could be a team that would want Justin Fields? If not Atlanta, who could be that team that trades up? Detroit, 7th overall. Are they that confident in Jared Goff? Essentially, he's a 2-year rental player. Despite what they traded to get, despite the fact they traded Matt Stafford, they got 2 firsts and Jared Goff. Do they groom Justin Fields? We'll see. Denver, are they high on Justin Fields? Is Philly fully sold on Jalen Hurts? Do they take Justin Fields at 12? Minnesota, 14th overall. Do they trade up to take Justin Fields? Are they sold on Kirk Cousins? And last but not least, I'll throw this out there in terms of if things go down the way that I think they could, with Trevor Lawrence going number 1, Zach Wilson going number 2, Mac Jones or Trey Lance going number 3, the New England Patriots could move up from 15 to 4 with the Atlanta Falcons and take Justin Fields. I honestly think that if I was a scout within that New England Patriots organization and I knew that we had Cam Newton, and I knew that we had Jarrett Stidham, I'm thinking, let's leave no stone unturned here. And rather than trading down, we're looking to win now, and we're looking to get better immediately with a quarterback that is easily comparable to Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, one of those two type players. Justin Fields could go to the New England Patriots. I'm calling it now. I think that it could potentially happen, and I think it would make a lot of sense. So there you have it. That is the 2021 NFL Draft quarterback class ranking, my top 5. Got Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and last, certainly not least, maybe the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. Obviously, Joe Burrow needs to be thrown in there as well. Trevor Lawrence, size, toughness, leadership. All 5 of these guys pose facets of those 3 things. But ultimately, my top 5 is my top 5, and that's how I rate these quarterbacks heading into the NFL Draft. What would be my pecking order? My board: Lawrence, Lance, Fields, Jones, and Wilson. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. You can find my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. Stay safe. And last and certainly not least, go Bills. Tune in tonight as Kurt Hawmesser and CJ DeSimone join me on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Take care.